Welcome to MidLIFE Matters, where we celebrate women's wisdom and wit. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host, and I'm delighted to have today's guest, Betty Bajek, an AARP volunteer with a background in education in the corporate world as well as school systems. Welcome, Betty.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
In the past 3 years, you've worked with AARP programs, including fraud prevention, age-friendly living, caregiving. And how does that work build on your experience as a professional in the pharmaceutical industry and other jobs and roles that you've had?
I got involved in AARP because I had been the victim of fraud. My credit card had been compromised right at a time when we were getting ready to go on a vacation, and then that didn't work out. I read an article in the AARP bulletin that they were looking for people to present the Fraud Watch Network program, and I thought, well, I could marry my skills. I have the experience of being a victim, and I have the skills of being a presenter, as I was a corporate trainer for almost 20 years in the pharmaceutical industry.
What type of topics did you have in your pharmaceutical role?
Pharmaceuticals is a very regulated environment, and my final chapter was in the Drug Safety and Pharmacovigilance unit. What I was responsible for was all the training in the regulated environment. We had standard operating procedures. It was important that everybody was trained on them, that they knew their role, that they executed their role. So if we were ever audited, if the FDA came in to do an audit, they could go back and they could say, yes, you did that right and you were trained for it.
Okay. So I could see where that would really line up with first topic, fraud, right?
Correct.
Looking at really what are the maybe safeguards people can follow, what are the maybe warning signs that they might be vulnerable.
Correct, especially seniors.
Okay.
There was quite a bit of information that floated around about seniors and getting their medication, and some seniors would get their medication and actually sell it because they needed the money. That plays into me being able to share my experience as a Fraud Watch presenter.
3 years, have you seen any shift in terms of people's awareness in general about fraud, or have any of the scams evolved?
The scammers are just so intelligent. It would be great if they used that intelligence for something useful.
Constructive, right?
However, because we've been going out, and we started with going to senior centers and the like, but now fraud is not just targeting the seniors. It actually targets everyone. And if you look at the statistics, you'll see that the millennials actually are scammed 40% more than the elderly.
Wow, I didn't realize
However,
that.
they don't have as much money, but the elderly are definitely targeted because they have that nest egg that the scammers like to get their hands on.
I had Tia Murphy on a few years ago, and I know you work with Tia, and I remember at that time there were issues certainly identified of elders maybe being a little lonely, some isolated elders, so they would respond to a friendly voice. They might be from that greatest generation that didn't hang up on people.
Correct.
Right back when there was a time you actually hung up a phone. And so there were issues around the vulnerability of, tending to believe in what the scammers might be presenting and getting people under the ether.
Getting them to where that adrenaline is pumping and they can't make a rash decision. So they'll say, you are being arrested if you don't pay this money because you did not show up for jury duty. And then the person is like, I never got a letter to go to jury duty. But they don't make that rationalization. But loneliness is a key target for the scammers. There was a gentleman out in California who, even though having intervention from his family, still talked to the scammer because it was a friendly voice, like you said, and he felt a kinship to this person, and he lost over $400,000 because every time this person called, he needed more money, and he was very happy to send it to him.
And I would imagine at times cognitive decline plays a role, right, in terms of
Absolutely.
decision-making, judgment, impulse control.
Sure.
All those things that, we try to learn as we go along. And what about your role with caregiving programs?
We have something called the Caregiver Roadshow for Connecticut families, and it really delves into information that most people as caregivers don't know is out there. So that's one side of it. But in the state of Connecticut, there's over 395,000 people who act as caregivers who are not paid.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be a family member, a friend, and possibly with caregiving from families, we have also noted an increase in fraud because, as you say, the person is declining and they're not looking at their finances or they trust the family member and the family member is actually stealing them blind.
And there's that friendly fraudster element too, right? Sometimes people ingratiate themselves
Absolutely.
to someone that needs more assistance, maybe starts with yard work, and then they might end up, oh, let me do your groceries, and I'll need
so
money
they
for
build
that
the-
or your card.
They build the trust.
Yeah, kind of like
And-
grooming.
They do, yeah, and they do it very well. They know exactly what buttons to push.
Oh, so that's great work that you're doing. What about this Dementia Friend Champion? I'm not really familiar with that program.
Well, in Connecticut, it used to be the Alzheimer's Resource Center. It's now called Live Well.
Okay.
And at Live Well, they are doing Dementia Friends information sessions around the state. And one of the sessions they decided to do was to work with the Quinnipiac students who are in their occupational therapy program. AARP teamed up with them. So we went out with the students as they did this project, their capstone project to graduate. And what it is the people take a little survey prior to hearing the information. Like, what did you think about dementia? What words come to mind? And then post getting the information. And there's a huge difference in what people felt before versus what they feel afterwards. And now they feel they could actually approach somebody with dementia and understand it better. Somebody with dementia, and there's so many different types of dementia, and there's so many varying degrees of dementia, that one of the first things they learned was that somebody with dementia might take 20 minutes to give you an answer. Because they're looking for that word. It's in there, it's cognitive in there, but it's not coming out through their mouth. And so we have the audience wait for 20 seconds. And that seems like such a long time. But it's not a long time. But afterwards, people know they can have the patience to be with somebody who has dementia. And with this program, Live Well has people that will go out with us who have early stages of dementia, and to hear them speak from experience and the things that they have gone through. One gentleman, Bob, talked how hard it was for him to give up driving, how him and his wife had many arguments about that, but that in the end, he was able to go to a place where he could live and live with dementia, and she's nearby.
Okay. And so what type of training did you get as the AARP side of it?
We got training right from Live Well.
Okay.
We went through their training. There's a whole participants workbook. It's a fabulous program because it just brings an awareness to people that dementia isn't something you're going to catch from somebody else. So we kind of targeted not just senior centers and going out to senior centers, but we targeted like municipalities because they deal with people all the time at the town hall, at the fire department, at the police department, etc.
I have a good friend who's a social worker, and her role is working for a municipality. And I know a lot of the cases, if you will, or requests that come through her office. There's an element of people who have some cognitive decline. So I would see with folks like yourself, that would be an added level of support and information.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And that spreads through our other programs at AARP.
Well, sounds like you've got a whole new stage to your life.
I do.
That's
I
wonderful.
do. I love being a volunteer with AARP Connecticut.
Volunteer extraordinaire.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And you're also the chair of the Democratic Town Committee in Prospect,
I am.
Connecticut. And you recently hosted a women's panel. So tell me how that came about.
Well, March is Women's History Month.
Okay.
And March 8th is International Women's Day. So we decided as a group that we wanted to do something to honor women. We came up with this idea of having a forum. So we asked several women who we felt would be very inspiring, who would give us the lowdown on what they went through and how they got to where they are in their careers. One is Ellen Murray, who is the first woman firefighter in Connecticut. Wow. She did it on a dare. Her friend dared her to take the test, so she took the test. And then in her words, she smoked the agility test, with no pun intended,
Right.
and became a firefighter. And now she's the first woman fire chief in Naugatuck.
And about how many years ago would that have been that she did that? When did her career start? Like decades ago?
Decades ago. She's been a firefighter for a long time.
Okay.
And of course, she went through all the, short sheeting her bed and all those little
hazing
things. And
type
she
of
just didn't let it get to her.
boys will be boys type of things, right?
Correct. We also had a woman who runs the Prospect Nursery School.
Okay.
We also had a high school student and an optometrist and a lawyer and a media specialist. And each one of them, we asked them each questions. We actually gave them the questions ahead of time so they could be prepared. And it was all about women's work. Big ideas, bright ideas, big challenges, and bold women. And they came across, the audience was just so appreciative. People can't wait for us to do it again next year.
Wonderful.
But one of the things that came out of it was that feminism is not a dirty word. As Deb Flaherty said, it is not burning your bra and hairy armpits. It's really all about equality for women, equal pay, equal opportunities, equal treatment. And that's what we're looking for.
And your high school student, that's intriguing. What is she involved in that got her nominated for this panel?
She's involved because she spent some time last summer interning at the Democratic State Central.
Okay.
And she is going to school for political science. She's going to Mary Washington down in Virginia. Very wonderful young woman. And that was all part of our plan, too. Our strategy was to try to get younger people involved in politics. And this student, Jasmine Coppola, said she thinks more women should be in politics because women know what they need and what they want, and they can advocate for it.
I was just at a leadership conference sponsored by the New Britain YWCA, and they award these, I think they do it every 2 years, they award these acknowledgments to people from a wide variety of fields. So I'm on the board of the Hospital for Special Care, and our CEO is a woman. She has a lot of women on her senior staff, and so she was one of the people. But also, they had a number of students from high school and college, which I thought was so refreshing and so positive to really acknowledge earlier in the game and set them up as role models.
Absolutely.
So that's brilliant that you did that. That's super.
It was very inspiring. And so we're looking forward to next year.
Did your guests have any reaction to their experience? The people on the panel, did they give you any feedback?
They were very happy to be involved.
Okay.
They were also very happy to share their experiences. For example, Carla, who is a lawyer in town, when she first started out, she was working at a firm and she was pregnant, very pregnant, and she needed to go to trial. And her boss said to her, "What you're wearing is inappropriate." And she thought, what else am I going to be wearing? And she was so embarrassed and humiliated that was a turning point for her. She said, "You know what? I don't need this. I'm going to open my own business." And so she did. She has her own practice in town.
Wonderful. And that was probably a number of years ago, right?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. So you had a range from high school to people that have been doing this for whatever their chosen field is for decades.
Correct.
Wonderful. So you are going to have to do it again.
We are.
Oh.
And we have people that are knocking down our door because they want to be part of the panel.
That's great.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
super. Good for you. And also you co-chair the Friends of the Prospect Library annual book sale.
Correct.
You offer workshops, which I want to hear about, and your blind date with a book. So tell me about the blind date first.
For the blind date with a book, I actually saw this idea. It's not an original idea. I saw it over in Port Jefferson last summer. And it's taking books and wrapping them in brown paper and then putting intriguing little tidbits on the cover, like that it's by a New York Times bestseller author or some little snippet out of it. And then we put our label of friends and we sell them at our book nook, which is inside the lobby of the library. So I just got a call this morning saying all the books that we put out under Blind Date with a Book are gone. I need to bring some more. I think it was because of Mother's Day.
Okay.
So many were purchased, but
Wonderful.
I have more to go. A lot of them are out now, bestseller books out now. So those are the ones I try to do for Blind Date.
Okay. It's a fun fundraiser.
It's a fun fundraiser.
Yep.
And the Friends of the Prospect Public Library, what we do is we have these fundraisers so that we can support and fund programs at the library. We fund 100% the Museum Pass program, which you can get a museum pass and go to 13 different museums at either inexpensive rate or discounted rate. We also pay for all those children's summer programs at the library and any other things that the library needs. We have a little staging area where we change it from month to month, where we have one month it's cooking and one month it's building something.
Different themes.
Different themes for the children.
Okay. Wonderful.
And then the workshop that I was asked to do was around Valentine's Day. So I did two. I did one where we did an exploding Valentine box with the adults, and we did Valentine cards with the children. And one little boy was coloring and making pictures, and I said to him, "Oh, so how old are you, and are you in kindergarten?" And he said, very seriously, "No, I dropped out of kindergarten."
He has a bright future.
His mom happened to be there with his brother and sister, and she said, "Did my son just say he dropped out of kindergarten?" I said, "He did." She said, "Well, she had started him in school, and his birthday wasn't until the end of December, and he just wasn't ready. So he'll start again in this September."
Oh, I love it. That's precious. So tell me about the exploding Valentines. That's intriguing.
Well, it's a box that is made with different levels of box, and as you take the top off, it opens up like a flower, and you put different pictures or sayings.
Okay, so it doesn't actually
explode.
It's kind of expanding. No. Yeah. Okay. All right. That's neat. Getting a little more personal. A friend's mother advised you to always make time for your friends.
Always.
Always. And you have some here in the audience today.
I do.
You have your gal pals.
I do.
So college, getaways, different women that you've interacted with and, maintained friendships with. Tell me a little bit about some of those getaways and how this enriches your life.
Well, first of all, one of the ladies in the audience today is my friend who, next year we will celebrate 50 years of friendship. And we have had some major laughing fits.
Okay.
She's laughing now, I'm sure. My college gal pals, I met them back in 72 when I transferred to Western Connecticut State University, and we have maintained our friendship this whole time. And one of our friends, Shirley, bought a house down in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, and 5 years ago she started with WestCon Women's Big Adventure.
Wonderful.
So we go down for a week. Well, it started off, we went down for 4 days, then we went for a week. This year we went for 9 days.
Okay.
We just keep adding on to it.
Yeah.
And just whatever we want to do, go to the beach. We went to a tea party, but first we had to scour the thrift stores for hats.
Okay.
We had these wonderful hats to wear.
Part of the adventure.
Part of the adventure, yes.
Okay.
We went to Mount Dora to the Blueberry Festival. We've been out on the airboat ride. That was a lot of fun, It's just great to get together. This past weekend, on Friday, I was together with my friend Kathy and Marcia, and it's Marcia's mom who said, always make time for your girlfriends. And we went to the Dogwood Festival, bought these beautiful bracelets, friendship bracelets.
Very nice. So in Mount Dora, I understand you did a steep climb.
We did.
Okay.
We did. Mount Dora is the highest peak in Florida. It was 183 feet.
Okay. Wow.
And you could buy T-shirts.
Always up for a challenge, right? And I'm sure that over those years, so many things have happened in your friends' lives and your own life, right?
Absolutely.
And you've been there for each other.
Yes, we have.
I have some friendships like that. I mean, we just kind of know everything about each other, just about, and we're still our biggest supporters. So
Correct.
Isn't that the definition of a friend? That
That's right.
They know all aspects and love you.
They love you no matter what.
No matter what.
Even if you snort when you laugh.
Yeah, right. So what about your mom and her recent visit with a lifelong friend? That was a charming story that you shared with me.
My mom just turned 93 in April, and her friend Anne lives at Elam Park in Cheshire, and my mother called me and said, "Would you take me to see Anne? I'd really like to see her." Well, Anne is going to be 93 July 10th. Anne and my mom went to grammar school together.
Wow.
And I am so grateful to be a fly on the wall as these two talked over lunch. They started talking about, remember when we learned how to play the harmonica in 5th grade and we were the entertainment for the PTA? Then they started giggling like schoolgirls. They talked about all their friends. They talked about who's still alive. And then they talked about going to their friend Dot's Aunt Trudy's restaurant in Nyack, New York. And Aunt Trudy had a group that played the accordion. They were called the Alpineers.
Okay.
And Aunt Trudy got up and she said, "We have some very special guests from Connecticut today, and they're going to come up and whistle." Well, I thought I was just going to split a gut. I laughed
Right.
so hard. And the two of them just started laughing because neither one of them got up to do it.
Oh.
They sent two other friends up to whistle.
Okay.
But it was great. It was great to hear them and listen to them. And my mom talked about her children and her grandchildren and great-grandchildren. And unfortunately, Anne was never able to have children. But she just loved hearing my mother's story and seeing the pictures.
Pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we'll be, as a matter of fact, Anne wanted to know if my mother rented me out so I could go visit her.
Okay, you could. Well, I had an experience where in the end of my mom's life, we had a great hospice team, and a good friend of my mom's came up, and they had quite the conversation, and my mom wasn't really that vocal or interactive at that point, and the spiritual person on the hospice team said, "Old friends can cut through so many layers that in a unique way that no one else can do." And I just thought that is so powerful of a testimony about friendship and how wonderful if we have friends,
Right.
even to the end, of our days, not to dwell on that aspect of it, but they were friends for 60 whatever years, had their kids together, and that connection's very, very strong. And also I know Bernice Nurgarten, who was a pioneer in aging and so forth, and she actually put friends on with family members when they mapped out like influences on people, and so that the friends became part of the family tree in a way, and I thought that was also very powerful.
Absolutely.
And I do tend to notice that women benefit from friendships more often than men in that way. I think the sharing, being more verbal perhaps, whatever reason it makes us all tick.
Somebody once said, if you have one friend, you're blessed.
Yeah.
I'm blessed multiple times.
That's wonderful. So encourage everyone to make time for their friends. So what do you enjoy most about this stage of life?
Not having to get up and go to work.
Okay.
Not having to get up at 5 a.m. to go to work and leave by 5:45 to be at work at 7:30. And also just the freedom. If I want to get up, I can get up. If I don't, and what do I want to do with my day? I can do whatever I want with my day. And there's that lack of responsibility that I didn't have when I was working.
Right.
And so I love it.
Do you find that not having the challenge that's associated with that responsibility has any effect on you? I mean, volunteer work, do you find there's some element of challenge still that feeds that? Because obviously you had a long career, so you thrived on that in many ways, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I love a good challenge. And as I told my husband, the tank's not empty yet. I still want to do more.
Right.
So that's why I got involved in AARP. That started it, and then I got involved in the Friends, and then I got involved in the DTC, and who knows? And now my next big thing on volunteering is I signed up to volunteer at golf tournaments.
Okay.
So
And what will your role be?
the last one was at TPC in Boston over Labor Day weekend, and I worked the hospitality tent. I had to make sure people had the correct tickets, and I put a bracelet on them before I let them in.
I think you'd be excellent at that. So whoever identified that opportunity for you,
Did a good job.
Kudos. And what advice would you give your younger self, maybe 25, 40?
I would tell my younger self to not be so afraid.
Okay.
Stop sitting on the sidelines and watching your life go by. Get involved. Jump in. Take the risk.
Okay.
A lot of times I didn't want to do it. I have no regrets, but sometimes I think I probably could have jumped in more.
Okay. And did that change from, say, your early, like your 20s into your more midlife? Did you find you gained more courage or risk-taking as you got more confidence?
At some point, but I also worked a lot of hours, and so that became my focus. And now, in retirement, the paradigm has shifted, and so now I can do what I want, and I can also, if I want to take the risk or take the challenge, I can do it. And there's a different evaluation that goes on with that.
Okay. Wonderful. And you have a favorite mantra or saying?
Oh, I do. It's pay it forward.
Okay.
And that started when I know this is a sore topic, but when we used to have tolls in Connecticut, somebody paid for me to go through the toll. When I got up there and I went to pay, and they said, oh, no, the person in front of you paid.
Wow.
I said, they did. So I paid for the person behind me.
Nice.
Pay it forward.
Okay. And women have, in your life, in terms of your career and so forth, have you found that women have helped you pay it forward?
Absolutely. There are so many women who have helped me, who have guided me, who have provided leadership at the time when I needed it most, and helped me become successful.
Wonderful. Well, that's a wonderful set of stories that you have. Thank you so much for joining us. And please tune in to hear other fascinating women on future segments of Midlife Matters. I'm Georgian Lussier, your host. Thanks for joining us.